activation of Shakti is not at all Shaktipat. Shaktipat is a descent of energy. Shaktipat is literally the descent of grace. Shaktipat, the movement of power. And the movement of power, the movement of Shakti is downward. Whereas the so-called transmission of Shakti, as you speak of here, in the activation of another person, is not an activation of Kundalini, but an activation of a pranic field. So it doesn't even fall under the category of activation of Kundalini. What practices besides meditation and pranayama can help prepare the body for a complete ascension of Kundalini? I can activate the energy, but full ascension has not yet occurred. I believe it should be a natural and organic process, but how can I prepare for this phase? Second question, is the activation of Kundalini, which involves transmitting Shakti energy to another person, the same as Shaktipat? After Kundalini awakening, this is third question, I'm experiencing headaches, dizziness, and a ringing in my ears that intensifies during meditation. How long can this process last? And how should I interpret this? Okay, so very good questions. Let us clarify this. So, full awakening of Kundalini is not a straightforward or commonly experienced affair. Full ascension of Kundalini is indeed a cosmic affair. So let's not just like beat about the bush. And so full ascension of Kundalini is indeed a completion of the process of involution. So it is understood to be as an inseparable part of evolution as involution. So it's not something as trivial as Kundalini awakened, and it has to rise, and it will rise, and it will organically manifest in that full ascent. This is a picture from the dream world. It may be New Age, replete with this kind of promises and people who come out of there. You know, I want to tell you something. If the person has Kundalini risen to the level of just third chakra, this will make them a profound, powerful individual. Individual on par with those who move and shape the history of humankind. Just third chakra, just raising Kundalini to the level of Manipura will make someone into a profoundly powerful being. Okay, and we can give many analogies here. In a person whose Kundalini is risen to the throat chakra will be the most gifted orator, speaker, most eloquent, perhaps poet, singer. It can become an extraordinary display in every way possible. And I can give many different analogies up and down the ladder of the what call it Jacob's ladder sometimes, how they just flip that whole yogic language here. So please don't just be hard on yourself. And what is important is to understand for all of us here that if the Kundalini is activated and the passage to the medium channel Sushumna is open, then that's what's most important. Then this would proceed in the manner with which that so-called personal evolution here is now subjected to the much, much more refined cosmic processes. With that being said, yes, of course, there are knots, psychic knots in the subtle body. And these psychic knots prevent from Kundalini successfully traversing. Even in the cases when Kundalini can traverse inside the Sushumna, this is dealt with painstakingly in the Kundalini course, which now I'm just gonna show this just purely for this is the manuscript, transcribed manuscript of what now comprises as the blueprint of what is being worked into the Kundalini book that we're coming to offer sometimes later on this late spring this year, based on what was delivered 4 years ago, I believe, in our seminal Kundalini course. In that course, we delve into all types of Kundalini risings, including those that are less desirable, including those that are, let's say, do not lead to what is spoken of as completion of that phase process. Even if it reaches the cortexes, even if it reaches within the Sushumna, as in the case with the Vajranadi, that is situated inside the Sushumna, but is the Nadi that terminates beneath the plateau just as it touches this very important area. If you look at the segment of the skull in the subtle anatomy, it will correspond to that what is spoken of as a plateau, and it will hit under, but that's where the Vajranadi terminates. You see, it doesn't give access to the Brahmanadi. It doesn't go into the Brahmanadi. It doesn't even go to the nadis which correspond to the awakening of very important psychic centers that are corresponding to the activity of the pineal and pituitary gland. The nadi is active in every human being upon sexual arousal, even when one is aroused by dreams or imagination or imagery. Vajranadi is active. It dilates, okay, enlarges. So this is a vast topic here to talk about what besides meditation pranayama can help prepare the body for complete ascension. First, we need to determine what obstructs Kundalini from its free ascension. You see? You are right that it should be natural and organic process. But in our day and age, it seems not to be the case. And maybe it has been for some times. It seems it's not as granted and as given as maybe it was before, when our subtle body or subtle bodies were much, much purer, much more developed, in a sense that the shift towards, let's say, a collectively held, let's say, belief system altogether gives the emphasis on what otherwise goes at the expense, you see? So now, moving to your second question, which I think is a very important distinction needs to be made here, is the activation of Kundalini, which involves transmitting Shakti energy to another, is the same as a Shaktipat? No, it is not. Let us make it very clear distinction. Activation of Shakti is not at all Shaktipat. Shaktipat is a descent of energy. Shaktipat is literally the descent of grace. Shaktipat, the movement of power. And the movement of power, the movement of Shakti, is downward. Whereas the so-called transmission of Shakti, as you speak of here, in the activation of another person, is not an activation of Kundalini, but an activation of a pranic field. So it doesn't even fall under the category of activation of Kundalini. We continue this job, and we have introduced the term pranotana last year, which is, yes, commonly today misunderstood. I would say I don't know what the ratio, I don't want to go there because you will hold me for where is the statistics and what have you. But I would say, in my experience, the cases of those who suggest, insist, or imply that they have full awakened Kundalini process because they went through Kriyas, this and that, because they went through movements, because they went through these experiences, psychic experiences, visions, visitations, is what Kundalini comprises of. You can have all that, and that will just be due to the heightened pranic activity, also known in yogic tradition as pranotthana, double T there, double TH, pranotthana. So activation of Kundalini in another person and Shaktipat is not the same. These are very different processes. The Shaktipat proper is a descent of grace, literally. And classically speaking, if we are to lean on the understanding and the expositions of the Shaivites, and let me just add, the reason why Trika Shaivism was also chosen as an umbrella for our Kundalini course and likewise book in the making is because all the knowledge of Kundalini that we can find in yogic literature that came after comes one way or another from Shaiva tradition. It comes from that way and lineage, and then was disseminated through many different yogic schools. So, according to the work of the sages of the aforementioned tradition, there are only two types of Shaktipat. That which is administered by a qualified guru, a Shaktipat master, or direct descent of grace known as Shiva's grace. In other words, when it is not assisted, it is, as it were, self-assisted. It comes from nowhere but from the department of the Almighty without anyone facilitating that. Only two. Take it or leave it, as they say. I've met many people who profess doing Shaktipat left, right, and center. Many of them came to my work. Many of them have been with me for a period of time. And I dismiss them all in the same way. Even if some of them very respectful of those who are not respectful, those who did not stick around. I don't care what they call themselves. Some of them claim to be guided by the goddess. You make your own understanding. Don't just settle on what I'm saying. Go and find out. Find out for yourselves. But let it make it very clear. Let it be very clear that the activation of Kundalini, right, does not happen in that, let's say, horizontal plane of passing it on as one can in many modalities where is a byproduct. How many of you know or aware that when you reach a level 3 of Reiki healing is when one can heal just by name alone? In other words, you don't even need to have someone who needs to be worked on in the same geographical location. They can be in Timbuktu whilst you are in Moscow. You can be anywhere, and the one who is undergoing the healing can be also anywhere. Of course, there are some logistics and practicalities. It is beneficial if the one who undergoes that is aware of the appointed moment in time when the session occurs. So when that takes place, and the skillful, right, fully accomplished Reiki healer at the level of that third degree begins their work, it is accompanied often by activation of pranic field. And the person who undergoes that healing starts to shake, tremble, just as it would be displayed in any of these, quite frankly, flamboyant systems known as KAP, K-A-P systems. You came across, nothing against the founder, he's a very beautiful man, but the way the whole thing turned is just a DIY. You know what I'm talking about. Kundalini activation practice or Kundalini activation program, known as an acronym for KAP. People shake, move, like roll, like, no, they're all lying down, submissively receiving this. This is not Shaktipat. But in a Reiki, this is what happens. I've done pranic healing, and I have that based on clinical experiences of those who undergone the healing sessions with myself to have these movements. You see? So this is to make it clearer for us so that we don't brush it with the same brush, what the Kundalini process is and what the activation or heightened activity of prana. Finally, that third question here, the headaches, dizziness, and ringing in your ears, right, in the ears, intensify during meditation. All these are very common experiences, particularly the dizziness, headaches, right? It's not uncommon. Ringing in the ears, it could be very good. It could be that you are in the ensuing phases of the unleashing of the subtle sound, known as unstruck, anahat nad, and falls under the category of the whole science of these very subtle sounds. Nad yoga deals with that. And ultimately speaking, let's say not to gain, let's not rush, jump into conclusions, but I would say simply because it's fitting, one could even measure someone's sadhana by that sound being an eternal current one is fully established in. One is constantly in that sound. That sound doesn't come and go. That sound is all there is. When that sound is fully unleashed, undergoes through progressive phases of its refinement, and culminating in that self-evident sound of pranav that is, effectively speaking, God humming its own name to itself, speaking that semi-poetic way, that can become in itself the beginning and end of all practices. One just needs to turn one's attention to that sound and nothing else. Nothing else, you see? One immediately is harmonized, tuned, everything begins to balance itself. One is in the presence of one's being in a tactile, direct way, not in speculative way of awareness and all that hula-bula nonsense. You see? So this could, what you share here, herald a very beautiful phase. But headaches, dizziness is, of course, need to be addressed attentively by you, not to just let it kind of go into a chronic level, right? Kundalini headaches is a massive topic in its own right. It has to do with a lot of reasons why that is. We talk about it in the Kundalini care of the course, but just to say that deprivation of the level of magnesium in all of us modern people is perhaps one of the number one reasons why we are prompted for these headaches more than maybe our predecessors. One should avoid at all costs having the dehydration of the organism. With a heightened electric activity, heightened heat, there needs to be more fluids in the body all the time. More fluids, not just water, more electrolytes in the body. So in other words, even water has to be of quality that it's required, not just any water. See? The progressive alkalization of the body, because the body, modern body is acidic. Acidic, right, is a root cause of all pain in the body. Whenever we have pain condition, in whatever degree, in whatever department, it heralds and signifies some presence of acidity. Whether joints are painful, whether our liver is painful, where our head is painful, like anything, pain signifies some kind of imbalance where there is a more acidity than it should be in the body. So alkalizing the system,